Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special podcast, videocast, with an absolute couple of legends. Now, Stephen here from Vanguard Tactics, but as you can see, I'm joined by a few other guests on today's show. I'm joined by Dave from Mini Wargaming. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you very much. I can't believe I'm here right now. It's a little surreal. This is probably a dream.
I feel like you've taken my line. I was meant to say about you being here, it's a dream. So welcome, all the way over from Canada.
Yes.
It is an absolute honour to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So anyway, we're going to be talking to you in a moment, but we've also joined by James. How are you doing, James?
Really, really well, thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah, good. Good. Nice early morning drive. It was fun.
Yeah. Not quite as far as Canada.
Not quite as far as Canada.
But still pretty far.
Pretty cold still, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liam?
Yeah. Actually, today, James has travelled further than Dave.
Yeah, technically he has, today.
So, I'm just saying he's travelled the furthest today, so he's made the most effort.
He absolutely has.
That's where I'm going with it, right? Yeah, it's fun. This is fun, isn't it, Steve? It's been exciting. We've been here for a couple of hours now at Factorum, and this has been an exciting morning already. So
it's been awesome just hanging out and chatting. Really,
but trying to get this is like herding cats. But we're here now. We're good to go, right? We are here now. We're ready for a nice, fun podcast. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for this.
Now, we thought, really, that we are joined by two absolute legends in the game when it comes to somebody that's taken their hobby to, I'm going to give it the word profession.
Yep.
I would say you're both professionals. You two might have a different idea of what you do. But genuinely, you guys are absolutely inspiring. You've been... Well, the first time we ever met, James, I was inspired by what you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, we played, if I remember correctly, it was a game at Warhammer World, and I was rocking some Iron Warriors, and you had some nasty Trixie Elder.
I did.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
It was a good, great game.
Yeah, and I can remember, like we said, just talking to you, I was completely inspired by how you'd taken your, philosophy behind what you did and how you've created Siege Studios, and I really want to go into that a little bit more today.
Perfect, yeah. That'd be good.
But also, obviously, it goes without saying, we're also joined by... obviously Dave. And I certainly, when I was younger, grew up watching some of this man's content. So, what about you, Liam? What was your kind of first experience with Dave's channel?
So Dave was the first person I ever watched on YouTube. So I started watching YouTube content for 40k back in 2014. Left the army, started working late nights on a night shift. And when there was nothing to do, there's a friend of mine who read all the novels, didn't believe it was a tabletop war game. So I was like, I'll prove it to you. I'm sure there'll be something on YouTube. And that's where I found Dave back in 2014. And for me, this is a really interesting topic that we're going to talk about because some of you will know, I've recently made the decision to leave work, go full-time with it myself. I know, Steve, you've recently been doing Vanguard Tactics full-time as well. So I think for us, this is quite interesting as a topic because these two legends have been doing it for quite a while now. It'll be interesting to hear about the trials and tribulations, the difficulties, the moments of doubt maybe. Yeah. Because we're probably all about to go through that in the next couple of years as well.
Let's not lie. This was just basically a chance for me and you to get some business coaching.
Yeah.
But palm it off his content.
And more followers on Instagram. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Free business coaching and hopefully some followers.
Yeah.
That's for you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, okay, let's start. So I'm going to ask you both of these questions, and then what I'll do is I'll pitch it to one of you at a time, all right? So, Dave, what was it that made you start Mini Wargaming? I want to know the origin. What was that, the real beginning?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my business partner, Matthew.
Okay.
So it was both of us, and this was almost 15 years ago. So we started when YouTube was brand new, when advertisers were like, no, just a bunch of kids making videos, stay away from that. So that was cool. I had a landscaping business. He had an internet marketing business. I didn't want to wreck my body. I approached Matt. I said, hey, Matt, let's do a business together. He's like, well, we played Lord of the Rings by Games Workshop a few times. Do you want to sell some of these things? Yes, let's do it. Anything but landscaping. I don't care. And so that's how it started. I only played about 3 games of Lord of the Rings at the time.
Okay.
And I was a landscaper, so I started making terrain tutorials because it was the natural extension of what I kind of knew at the time. And all the other armies were taken in the club, and I saw Chaos Space Marines. They were not taken, and I just fell in love instantly. And I knew that my calling was calling to me when I saw the look of the aesthetics of the Chaos miniatures. So that was that. And we had a store, right? Really, it was a big stumbling process for many, many, many years. There's a good 3 years where we didn't make any money. So my wife is a nurse. She supported me while I continued. There's a number of different... Matt's very pragmatic. He's very logical. He's very... we had 3 conversations. Dave, we're not making any money with this. We should probably stop. I'm an internet marketer. You're not making any money. It's like, I feel bad doing this. I'm like, no, anything but landscaping. No, I don't care. Let's just continue doing it. So that's how we started at the beginning. And then it just slowly, organically grew, right? Over time, it was like, okay, well, this is working. We're making a little bit of money, like not much, 100 quid. So I got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100 quid a month. It's like, oh, it's 100 quid a month. That's amazing. Oh my goodness, we're making money with this thing. Like that was way back then, and that was a big deal, right? Because we actually starting to make something. And yeah, so we just constant experimentation with content types, throwing spaghetti against the wall, 1 sticks out of the 100 that fall. So that's it.
And what was it that made you go to YouTube and was it because it was the only platform at the time where you could share what you were doing?
Yeah, YouTube.
I think to start with, like, why go to YouTube? So it sounds like you just started as a retailer, right? Essentially. Yeah. So you're a retailer, a hobby store. And then, so I think most people listen to this will only ever know Mini Wargaming as a hobby channel. 40k, Age of Sigmar, Bolt Action Now, etc. So where did that transition, or why did that transition to YouTube take place? At what point did you go, let's stop selling product, let's start selling content?
That was a good number of years into it. Maybe 2 or 3. Matt can tell you the exact date because he's good with numbers. But he had this idea. He'd seen it in internet marketing where there's subscription-based businesses, and you provide something, some sort of either. At the time, coaching was big, right? Make money online, coaching service. And
who would do that?
Who would do something like that?
Users.
But it was content, so this was before Netflix. So this was like kind of like, if we do this is kind of a new concept. And the very first thing that we made was a terrain CD. There was terrain tutorials in PDF form.
What's the CD?
On a CD. That was the very first product in the vault, in the Mini Wargaming vault, right? And we compiled it together and we presented it, and people they signed up for it because they wanted to support us. Let's see the eyebrow raise.
They bought a CD.
They bought a CD
from the Mini Wargaming vault.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and so this is like nothing had been done like that in the industry and in many of the industries, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's continue. Now that we have people supporting us, we got to create more stuff so as to justify the support that they're giving us, because that was just like one project, right? And so tutorials started being made and collaborations started to happen with more people. And then eventually battle reports started to go in the vault because we were making battle reports on YouTube, but none were in the vault. And this is kind of an obvious thing looking at it, like pragmatically. It's like, well, majority of our content's bat reps. How come none are in the vault? Let's put them in the vault. Maybe our vault will grow, right? And sure enough, it did.
Nice.
So did the vault come before YouTube, or did YouTube come before the vault?
It's like a chicken and the egg question.
Yeah.
YouTube before the vault.
YouTube was before the vault. And what made you go to, so back to Steve's question, what made you go to YouTube as a platform? Just because it's
it was
good?
The biggest. It was the biggest at the time. Yeah, there was people, like at the time, if you had 100,000 subscribers at the time in any industry, right, that was massive. It's still big, but it was amazing. It's like the hundreds of millions now, right, comparatively speaking. So in the industry, in our industry, if you had a few thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 at the time, that was massive. Yeah, the biggest YouTube channel had 1,800 subscribers at the time, and it was like, that's like a small town. That's the equivalent of a small village.
You've got to remember back then, they were still on dial-up, and their only competition was MSN. Was it MSN Messenger?
MSN Messenger, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you can't really put videos on there, mate. I reckon that's why YouTube.
Yeah.
There's people out there where they're probably younger than YouTube is. Like,
there was Vimeo though. Do you remember there used to be something? I don't know if it's still around now.
There's so many different.
There's Vimeo as well as another video platform.
Yeah.
Vimeo still exists.
It still exists.
There's a lot. I just realized I didn't answer your question both times, and I apologize for that. You're going back to the. So let's like nail this down. Why was it YouTube? Definitely because they were the highest viewed.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, okay, most exposure.
And people won't know. I mean, YouTube didn't come into existence until I think 2004. So
That's about right.
Yeah, YouTube's not that old in the grand scheme of things. So I find it fascinating actually that you sold physical digital content on the Vault as in a CD.
Yeah.
Because I think most people out there now, you look at Vanguard Tactics Academy, you look at Tabletop Tactics, you look at yourselves, you look at DZTV. It's all digital content, easy access, apps, phones, all that kind of stuff. But I'm absolutely blown away and fascinated by the fact that people bought CDs off of you of content. That's incredible. It's an incredible place to start.
So, same question for you, James. Obviously, you and I did a podcast together already.
Yeah.
But, there's going to be lots of people that haven't listened to that show that will be watching this.
I listened to it.
So, I want you... You actually listen to some of my content?
When James was on it, yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
I feel very, very honoured. Thank you.
So, James, what was it for... I want to know, tell us more about how you actually started Siege Studios.
Okay, so I've always sort of done some form of painting or art since I was a kid. Like to keep, rather than buying me loads of toys as a kid, my parents just bought me like blank wallpaper. I used to paint it in my back garden during the summer, obviously not during the winter because my parents would get done for child cruelty. So I always painted and done stuff. My granddad got me into airfix kits and planes as a kid. Many years later, I found Warhammer, got into it, and I obviously painted to a certain quality back then, which was still terrible. But for some reason, people asked me to pay me a bit of money to do it. So I did it in the early days, like sixth form and things like that. And then I had a huge break, done lots of shenanigans in music and played in bands and stuff, and then came back to it when all that all fell apart. Siege started. Not through my own accord, really. Like I got approached. I had, like we talk about YouTube, but I came back, found all my models in the loft or in garage, and started. I want to show what I'm doing, so I've done some videos on YouTube, just like showcases. I used to call them like kit bash diaries, where I'd convert something and put the conversion up and things like that. And I got approached by a couple of guys who just said, "Look, we kind of do paint for other people. We're seeing your stuff. What would you want to do some bits and bobs?" And at the same time, I returned to the job that I used to do, which was recruitment. So I've worked in recruitment back then for about 11 years or so, in and around music and things. And in my day to day, everything was super professional. Like as you know, like with candidates, putting them forward for jobs, dealing with obviously businesses, all this kind of stuff. So I was indoctrinated in like smooth professional running of that process. To then do painting for miniatures for people, it wasn't run that way at all, and it felt so outside my comfort zone because things that I'd expect as a client just weren't happening, and that's where kind of like, right, well, I'm not happy with this if I was a client, and I don't want to be involved with something that isn't that way. So I just decided to start Siege as a bit of a side hustle, just painting models for people in and around recruitment. I was saving for a mortgage back then, and I just thought it was a good way to get extra sort of money in. And then it's quite convenient that we're chatting with Dave as well today, because I've said this to you when we've spoken, and I've said it to Matt when I've seen him at Adepticon and stuff. But if it wasn't for Dave and Matt and Mini Wargaming, Siege wouldn't be where it is today, to be perfectly honest. You done your painting partner program, which we, very humbly had the opportunity of working with you. Matt done a couple of videos. I think you've done a video and we've done a brass scorpion for you and some other things. And just Siege went absolutely bonkers. So.
I appreciate your words, and I have something to say to that though, because it's interesting. The perspective is interesting because you mentioned the painting partner program. We worked with over 100 painting commission studios, right? But who became Siege Studios?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Like, I get the humble attitude, but I think there's something about Siege that stands out to other services that exist out there. And I think you've already touched on it with the level of professionalism comparatively to some of the other studios, taking nothing away from those other studios who do amazing work themselves. But there's got to be something out there. You must yourself think that there's something that sets you apart from other businesses.
I guess maybe perhaps a little bit, but I think. I don't know, like I just tried to do things. I always try and flip it from, like same when I was in recruitment, like if I was going to the interview, what would I expect to know about the company I'm going to, or what I expect the process to be or whatever. So I kind of implemented that through the way that we do things at Siege. And I kind of used that path as where I want the business to go and how I want it to be perceived. You say obviously about perception and things, but like for me, because it is my life 24/365, I don't see it as the company that I suppose other people see it as, because it's not changed for me.
You never see your own transformation.
No.
And that's true with whatever you do. I'm sure, Dave, you don't realise maybe how big you really are becoming. You are two incredibly humble people, but honestly, from the work that you've done has been absolutely inspirational. And seeing and hearing about every time I speak to you, James, there's always. I was like, you're moving again.
Yeah.
Before, it was like I need more room. And I always see on obviously your Instagram looking for more artists.
Yeah.
And I want to know how you actually go about managing so many people, because that is incredible. But even to some of the people that reach out to me at Vanguard, and they're like, oh, I'd love to paint some models for you. And obviously I talk about Siege Studios, and they're like, they have such admiration for what you do. And obviously a lot of people don't tell you that.
No,
but it really is incredible. So
it is like being in like a room with the lights off with the doors closed, I suppose, because I'm so focused on the thing that we're doing, and obviously I'm very conscious of, and I say this all the time, like I'm very conscious of there being a lot of businesses out there that the owner of the company simply goes in for a couple of hours or does this, and I'm not that way. I've never been that way. Like I'm half Spanish by adoption, and my dad brought me up to graft and work, and nothing was ever handed or spoon-fed. So because there's a combination of that and also wanting to deliver the best possible, that's kind of, I suppose, what are the core things for Siege and what's in the mantra of Siege, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, let's be clear. We've talked about Dave's visit on a few streams now. We've talked about you being here as well. I think the testament to the success of the two businesses is I can mention my channel, and there'll be a lot of people that don't know who I am. Steve, you are still in a place where that can be true for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
These two, that's not the case.
Yeah.
There's not very many people that don't know who Mini Wargaming is. There's not many people in the hobby that don't know who Siege Studio is. I think that's testament to how you are perceived within that environment as well. So, I mean, I love the humility. I love being humble, but you can show off a little bit if you want to. Yeah. We'll let you, Jay. You can show off a little bit.
Like, you have more Instagram followers than I do.
It's not, I'll always, whether you have 5 or 500,000, as much as numbers are great, I think the core morals and principles behind what you do are far surpass that. And numbers are great, obviously, with algorithms and all those things that we talk about that are obviously integral to sort of building a brand or building a business. But at the end of the day, if for any company, one person with a bad experience, or if you do, it can tarnish that, indefinitely or permanently. Which for me is also super important. Like I've had experiences when I've purchased things from companies and something goes wrong or something's not quite right, and especially when you are either a premium service or a bespoke service or something like that, especially in our industry as well, one person can potentially, if they have a bad experience, that will be mirrored all over. And you don't, it's the way you deal with difficult situations, not the good situations, and I think that's super important.
It's like you've looked at my screen and looked at the next question, which is all about, building that ethos and mission behind, obviously a brand. And that's something I wanted to find out more from you, Dave, is really what is the ethos when you're creating content? What is it that drives your content in terms of what are you trying to produce? What's your ethos behind Mini Wargaming?
So is that a question of as a company or as me personally?
Personally, as a company, yeah.
Well, first and foremost, it's mostly Games Workshop, right? Like 90% of our content is Games Workshop. So that was a decision made a long time ago. And then also 40K. At first, we just did Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And making the jump to cover Space Nuns was like, oh, okay, well, let's do this. That looks like the more popular game because the White Dwarf has everything there and one page of Lord of the Rings and all the rest is 40K. Okay, all right, we should probably play this game. And so it was the numbers and the people, but after playing the game, it's like, okay, well, this is a fun game, so let's continue playing this. And we completely forgot about Lord of the Rings and we just don't do that anymore. So that's Games Workshop. Okay, we're going to do Games Workshop. Now let's see what people want to see, and let's see what we like within what people want to see, right? Okay, I like Chaos. Well, I'll do Chaos. And Matt, he does Tyranids, and Steve, Luca, Josh, like they all do their own armies and within the thing that people want to see. And
what's at the heart of all those things?
The heart?
Yeah. Like for me, it's, I've always wanted to help people understand there's a difference between, being competitive and just trying to beat your opponent. For me, competitive is about improving yourself, and that's what I really try and get across in my content.
Right.
Is how you can learn from your mistakes and how you can be better.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is the heart of mini wargaming? What do you all share together?
Well, we have love of the game, right? The game itself. And so it's just, we play the game and we enjoy playing the game. So a comment that we see is that people say, we feel like we're in the room with you when you're playing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, okay, but that wasn't the intent. We're just playing the game and filming how we film, right? There are other setups out there that are way better than ours, right? But that's fine. Like, we don't focus on that. That's not our strength necessarily, right?
Yeah.
If I could call it a strength, we just lean into our
community.
Yeah.
You've cultivated an incredible community. And that really comes through, is that you guys just love having, playing the game, and that really shines, which is awesome. And if you can always keep, fun at the heart of it, then yeah, I think that's why from the offset anyway.
That's the business.
Success. Yeah.
Yeah. As a business, me personally, it's really about the interaction with the person. Like, it's the banter. Like, I love that more than we just happen to be playing Warhammer, right? It could be anything. And so, stuff charges and things blow up. It's amazing. It's a cool thing. It just happens to be Corn Berserkers having fun all day long. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting you talk about setups and stuff, right? So we had this kind of conversation before we went on air as such as well. I started recording this. I get a lot of questions. I'm sure everybody at the table gets a lot of questions. I'm hoping people that are listening to this are possibly people that are thinking about giving it a go and jumping in with content or looking at maybe making a future for this themselves. And I get a lot of questions about setups. I'm a gadget freak. I spent a lot of money on a lot of gadgets.
No.
Steve is exactly the same. So don't you tell me no, because you're exactly the same.
It's not like we compete about
how much. Yeah.
Just bought.
So hence we've got.
When I came in here, you were talking in camera language. I didn't understand the thing you were saying.
So, but I mean, talking about Winters, my business partner for DZ, that man just uses a smartphone and nothing else.
He's a hero.
I think the key is Winters does it well. I mean, you do it well. Dave does it well. The guys at Tables of Tactics do it well. Just love what you do.
Yeah.
And then people will want to enjoy that process with you. That's the key. And I think one of the reasons why I was so easily and quickly drawn to mini wargaming when I started watching you back in 2014 was you guys were just having fun. That feeling of being in the room with you, that's one of those key aspects. Enjoying yourself. I enjoy it with you as a viewer. If you get that right, if you just enjoy yourself and don't panic too much about how expensive your camera is or how good your editing is, I think then naturally people are drawn to that kind of ethos as a sort of general sort of thing, I think. If I'm honest, anyway. It's been my experience.
And James, how have you used your, I suppose, content platforms to grow your business? Is it mainly through like Instagram now, more so than, like you said, the Kit Bash diaries that you used to do on YouTube? How has that kind of evolved in terms of?
We use Instagram a lot. I think the thing, it's really funny because YouTube video and pictorial content is always interests me, because you look at a photo and obviously you absorb what's in that image, and obviously there's that analogy of a picture saying 1,000 words and all of that, but attention as a commodity, video encapsulates and captures someone way more, and it's like when you go to the cinema and you watch a film, you don't remember time passing and you don't remember the length of the film or anything like that, but you kind of just absorb into it, and time completely goes by. So there is a balance between the two. I think pictorial serves purposes whereby you haven't got a lot of time to absorb stuff. You can't spend that time focusing into it quite well. So that's why Instagram probably is the most dominant out of all the platforms of social media, because sitting and watching a 30, 40, 50, 60 minute video is a lot of time to give up for somebody. Whereas just having a quick scroll and a quick like of photos it hits that dopamine a lot quicker, if that makes sense. Instagram predominantly for us is obviously as a commission painting business. Like, pictorial content is obviously the strength of what we do, but we try and obviously do the videos as well, because I think as a premium studio and as of the quality we offer, and really I've got to take the owner hat off for a second and more as a painter, because I am not just an owner, I'm a painter as well. I don't paint for the business anymore, but I always have my hand on the brushes in some format. The models we only get them for a period of time. that we have to document them, and that's what we really do when we have them completed. It's a documentation of that for future use for marketing or for, oh, have you painted Corn Berserkers before? Yes, we have. Like that kind of thing. So, and it's to do justice to the quality of work that our team do, and for them to then have their hard work documented for everybody to see. It's a really important part of the process. Instagram is for us obviously building it. Obviously I'm very much a fan of giving back to the community. We obviously, anyone who knows us knows we used to do bonkers competitions and stuff, because I wanted to give back, and obviously a follow for the chance of winning something is I think a fair trade, So
yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely. So Dave, I want to find out a little bit more from you. Like, we spoke about your struggles at the start when you went from going from the small shop, made your first £100 to now
$100 was like 20 quid, but
yeah, to now having a much obviously larger premises, studios. I want to find out what's been, throughout your time doing this, what have been some of the most hardest and challenging moments throughout that time? Is there any sort of anything that really sticks out and you think that was some tough times to get through that?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of key moments, like, because we were selling the product online, and some policies were changed from some of the companies that were providing us with product, and that made it so we couldn't sell online at the time. So we had to actually completely change our business model.
Okay.
Yeah, from an online store to completely digital content-based, subscription-based business, right? And it was do or die at the time. It was like, and we were just transparent with the audience. Hey guys, we're going to go out of business unless you guys support us. If you like what you see, if you've ever wanted to support us in the past, then now's the time to do it. Otherwise, we can't do it. And so it's that transparency, I think.
Do you think that struggle that you went through was actually
a good thing?
A massive good thing? Yeah.
Yes, it was a good thing. It's like, in retrospect, like at the time, it was like, oh man, what are we going to do? We're going to go homeless. Like, we were like stressing out. But looking back, it's obviously like one of the best things to happen to us, right? Yeah. We weren't beholden to anyone for anything. We were independent, and we could make our own decisions and have journalistic integrity. And there were so many benefits that came with that. And so that was one of the biggest struggles, right? Like, that's like when you're faced with what do we do? If we don't make the right decision here, we're going to die. Like, it was actually amazing. Those moments are amazing because you make either the best decision or the worst decision, right? In those moments.
Yeah. And I can really resonate with that. And that's kind of how Vanguard Tactics started. I had the worst experience possible with my fitness business. And if it wasn't for that experience that I went through with essentially really feeling betrayed from the people that I was working with, and losing huge amounts of money, invested in a product that never came out, I wouldn't be sat here today making incredible content with some brilliant people that I can call really good friends.
And me.
And Liam. And genuinely, if it wasn't for that, which at the time I was borderline, like going out of questioning everything I did.
Yeah.
But that was the start of Vanguard Tactics. And it was Vanguard Tactics that really pulled me out of that dark place, and it gave me something to focus on. But yeah, I truly think some of those hardest times are really they're the greatest things that ever happened to you. You just don't see it at the time.
Yeah.
But what about you, James? Any parts where you look back and you think,
yeah,
actually I might have to give this up?
Yeah. Well, I think mine's a little bit the opposite, and I kind of understand totally what the decision you've made and what you're going to be going through very, very soon, obviously, with the jump you're making to doing full time. And I'll encourage anybody to do that. The way I always look at it is, if you don't try, you'll never know, obviously. But doing your own business or trying to do something for yourself, you can always go and get a job. It's always, that safety net will always be there. And for me, I kind of had it pushed on me a little bit. So I returned obviously back after music and bands didn't work out, and then got obviously into the painting models and all that blah blah. And I was doing it as a side hustle for my recruitment job. And I'd worked long and hard for a family-run business where I lived, and they're like, "Oh, we treat you like a son," blah blah, all this kind of stuff. I had my mortgage in principle, so I was ready to basically buy a house. And they changed my commission structure before the end of the year when it was cut off. Changed the dates essentially when it cuts off, and I lost portion of my bonus for the end of the year, which my mortgage was dependent on. So at that juncture, I was just like, right, well, look, I've worked for you guys for 3 years, building my clientele, building my contacts, my candidate, all that kind of stuff, and you've just, ruined the goal that I was working for. So I knew what Siege was doing around work, like a couple of hours, 6 hours a day, obviously around work or whatever. And I just thought, you know what, look, I can always go back to recruitment if I need to. And I just handed my notice in. I had 30 days holiday, didn't look back. It was the scariest thing I ever done, but it gave me the biggest kick up the backside to make it work. I had no other option, and that for me was one of the toughest things. And dealing with the growth that we've had as well has been super stressful.
It was incredibly brave when you make that jump.
100%, and I'd advocate anyone to do it, especially you, Liam.
I'm petrified.
Yeah, it is. The feeling of fear is a good thing.
Yeah.
I use an acronym all the time when I teach people to paint, or when I talk to people about, is this model okay? Or the word fear itself. So false expectations appearing real. Your false expectations of what will happen or what will happen is the fear that you're having. But going through that is what will push you and force you to make it work and make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I work in senior management in a business right now, and it's super stressful. And I've noticed over the course of the last maybe 3 or 4 months that it's had a negative impact on my overall health, both physical and mental. So my intent to go full time wasn't supposed to be happening anytime soon. Because I wanted a better or a bigger safety net, a bigger cushion. I had some serious chats with my wife because she's noticing the impact on your health. Yeah. And I think that I was in one of those dangerous loops or spirals. I don't know if any of you have ever felt this, where you get to a milestone. So you set yourself a milestone. This is my goal. This is where I'm going to go full time, or I'm going to do X, or I'm going to do Y. And then you hit that milestone. You think, actually, I've hit that milestone, so I'm going to move the goalposts. And I was in the process over the course of maybe the last 12 months of just keeping moving those goalposts. Maybe when we do this much money, maybe when we've got this many subscribers, maybe when we've got this much business, maybe when we're doing this many collaborations, keep moving those goalposts. And that became a really dangerous spiral, because then you'll never take the leap because of that fear.
Of course, yeah.
Because exactly that. So I am, honestly, I've said this to a lot of people, I've said it on live streams, I am absolutely petrified, but I'm also incredibly excited. Yeah. And I'm hoping that fear, and I'm guessing you guys have both, I'll be interested if you guys have both experienced this as well, that fear is that piece that keeps you honest.
Of course it does, yeah.
And makes you really focus on what's important and what your content's about, or what your business is about, and the ethos and all that stuff Steve's been talking about.
I remember saying to you when we had the discussion about it, and you were like, I'm thinking of going full time, but I don't know if it's going to work. And I said to you, look, you'll make it work, because I know you will, because you know that you've got that. You've got to support your family. You'll do everything you can to do those extra hours that you need to. And, Vanguard Tactics now is 2 years since its start. And, I know the graph that I've put in over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And you do everything you possibly can to make it work, and I absolutely know you will. So you've touched on family there a little bit, and that's something I want to ask you, David. You mentioned earlier that obviously your wife is a nurse, is that right?
Yeah, she worked as a nurse before, yeah.
When you told her originally, look, I'm thinking about giving up the landscaping business and I want to sell plastic toys. And I want to go on YouTube, and she's like, you what? And I want to know how that went in. How long did it take? Because my family at the time, when, I've always been a bit of a strange one anyway. I was like, modelling. They're like, that's not a real job. Get a real job, and then I'm like, I'm going to do personal training. That doesn't come with a pension, and obviously your family want to support you. They want to do what they know works, and that is, typically where, my family, you get a job, you get a good pension, et cetera, stable career, all those things. And I'm like, no, that's not for me. I've always been completely out there. And obviously I built this fitness business. I want to start doing YouTube content about a game that they never really enjoyed me playing when I was younger. So I want to know how it went for you.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's, you would think that it would go that way, right? It's like the way you present it, it's like, yeah, well, that's a sensible reaction to a ridiculous thing you want to do, right? And but it didn't. I think it's because there was, in my mind, I didn't matter how long it was going to take to make it work. I was just going to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so she's just like, okay, well, That's our path.
Does she know that you're real stubborn? And when you set your mind to something, it's going to happen?
Yeah, she's the first to, yeah.
You've got to have that mindset, though.
Yeah.
You've got to. Like, if you don't believe in it, then who the hell else is going to?
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that. The fact that sometimes family are the ones, because they care, the complete opposite is actually the case. They're the ones telling you, don't do it, you know.
Yeah.
My dad, for example, you know, worked in the city in London for many, many years, wanted me to go and work in London, didn't want me to do anything that was risky, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it's a really good thing that your family do that, but at the same time, they'll be the safety net for you if things don't work. But you've got to believe in it yourself, because if you don't, no one else will. It's got to be from within first. So.
That's
yeah,
true.
it's interesting. I think when you look at the potential for failure as well, I often think that a lot of people will look at a failure and they'll give it a reason, and often that's not a reason; it's actually an excuse. Because I think if anybody in any aspect of their life, if they really, I mean, there is some exceptions, right? If you wanted to be a professional footballer and you've got 2 left feet, it's just not going to happen. That's me, Steve, right? But on the whole, in life in general, James is touching it. If you've got that right mentality, you'll make it work. My wife believes in manifestation. So even if it's not consciously making decisions and doing things that then later have a positive impact on your path, whatever that path might be, that's a form of manifestation where you've done. I'm a super gregarious person. I'm very sociable with people. That's just me. And Luce has stated she thinks that's part of a manifestation piece where now I'm taking that leap. Actually, there's a lot of people being super supportive. Steve's one of them, for example. And I think people. The difference, if you get that mindset right from the start, you'll make a success of it at some point. And it might not happen overnight. It might not happen in a week or a month or even a year. DZ's been going for 3.5 years now, and we're just getting to the point where it can support both of us. But I think that if you've got that mindset and you can stay relatively positive about it and try not to focus on the failures, learn from them, because they are learning experiences. And if you use them as learning experiences rather than using them as ways to bring you down, anyone can be successful in almost anything they want to do.
Yeah, and I just want to say at this point, I remember a conversation you and I had, James, at I think it was at a Warhammer Fest.
Yeah.
And I just started my channel. You could tell I was doing something a little bit different, and you just said to me, "Just keep doing what you're doing."
Yeah.
Yep. And honestly, that really meant a lot to me at the time.
I sincerely, the thing is with especially what you do as well, it is about seeing gaps in the market as well. Like, we're very fortunate as an industry to be in one that commercially is not as wide or as I say wide, but has been around as long as other industries. So, obviously, miniatures started as a hobby. It is a lot of people's hobby, and that's what they do. But there aren't many. Well, back when obviously you guys started business-wise, there weren't many businesses back then. Like, a lot of the retailers that we know out in the UK, or a lot of international retailers, Mac companies, all these things, they've only sprung up in the last 3 to 5, I would say. So there's a lot of opportunity, and as an industry, we have loads of opportunity, and quite, like I said to you back at Warhammer Fest that time, you're doing something completely different. Just focus on that and stick on that, because in that way it gives you a uniqueness in the industry. Yeah. But yeah, it's gone strength to strength and leaps and bounds. So.
And I think that's just great advice for anybody: is really find something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, 100%.
Put your own spin on it. Do something different. Claim your ground, as it were. Put up your post. This is what I do. This is what I'm passionate about. Because the people that resonate with that message will, follow you, support you. We all do things a little bit different, and I'm sure that's why, when I look at both of what you've done, it's excellent, because you really are unique in what you do, and you've really set the path, I think, for others to, replicate. And I'm sure that, both of you have, had people try to replicate exactly what you do, and it can be incredibly frustrating. Mm-hmm. It really can be, but it is probably, as they say, the biggest form of flattery.
Yeah.
Because they can't really think original. They have to just look at, this is successful, I will do the same. But the reason why you're successful is because you are different, you're unique, and you were there, and you laid your ground, as it were. So
that's the X factor, I think.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting question specifically for you, Dave, in Mini Wargaming. When you started doing battle reports, had you seen it anywhere?
Yeah.
Was that something you'd seen somewhere else, and you thought we can do something like that?
Yeah, we saw it on Blue Table Painting. So it's funny, he did it with his phone too. And we're like, battle reports, okay, cool. We could do that. Yeah. We could also do it not on a phone. But he had a lot of subs, comparatively speaking. He had a lot of subs at the time, right? So we're like, if we can get that, then we got it made. It was 1,800, right? We have 1,800 subs. So we just started doing stuff. This is back when YouTube only accepted 10-minute videos. Yeah. And so we had to upload our bat reps in parts, and we would do one part a week. And so it'd be like 4 parts for a bat rep. So you got to wait an entire month to watch one battle report.
10 minute.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
10-minute parts.
And then here, okay, speaking of those big decisions, right? The time when YouTube was like, okay, you guys can upload longer videos. And we're like, oh man, I bet if we uploaded all in one part, we'd get more views. But then that means we're like kind of like decreasing our output by 4. Dang, that's a big decision. Okay, we're just going to try it. So we tried. Everyone's like, yes, please, let's do this. Keep this. Don't do it any other way. I'm like, okay, well, that's the new way.
Have you ever made any decisions that have had negative response or reaction from the community, and you've thought, do we do this, or do we stick to our guns and go down the path we're trying to go down?
Yes, actually. First off, the vault at the very beginning. Also, narrative campaigns, which ironically is the number one thing that makes us money. At the time when it was brand new, it's like, why are you guys asking for money for your content? It should be free. That was the big pushback, right? It's like, no, just put it on YouTube. We as viewers can watch your content, right? For free. Why do we have to pay for it? And so, I mean, that's a big question. And how do we answer that, right? The answer is we need to support ourselves, right? And we can't do it for free. Otherwise, there is no content.
Yeah.
Right? So it's from a viewer perspective, I guess it's probably a uninformed viewer perspective, it's easy to say that.
Yeah, and I think that's still like relevant now.
Yeah,
it's the biggest question when we talk about DZ. When PlayOn were putting their new series in DZ, and they were sort of teasing it on YouTube. I know Lawrence gets the question a lot from Tabletop Tactics. You guys must have done it. It's definitely still a very poignant question from people. Why would I pay for it when I can just watch it on YouTube for free? And I always say to people, do you want to watch more of it? Yeah. Well, then if you want that person to make more of it, then they need to be able to make more of it by not having another job that supports their family. I think there's this misconception that YouTube pays people millions in like ad revenue and stuff.
That is definitely not true.
It's definitely not true. Absolutely not true. It's
it's not true for us. I can't speak for like the massive YouTubers where they're I don't know, right? Yeah.
I mean, within our market, so Winning Wargaming is at what, 350,000 subs now?
379.
Oh, okay, I've sold you short there. So 380,000 subs.
Yeah.
And that in the YouTube world, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible, is a small channel.
It's incredibly small.
Right?
Yes.
And yet you are probably the biggest battle report producer in terms of numbers, I think.
Not true.
No?
No. There's okay. If we're talking this, there's a difference between number of subs and views.
Yes.
And the much more important number of the views.
Yeah. So I know this. We all know this as creators.
We all know this is true, right? And so if we're looking at views and interaction and like watch time, that's a lot more important than the views. It just simply is, right? And so are we the biggest at one time? Probably, right? Are we the biggest now? We have the biggest subscriber count, but that doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. It's the interaction, it's the watch time. Yeah. And it's the growth, it's the rate of growth.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really fascinating, and it keeps on changing. It's really hard to follow that algorithm and try to do the best thing to continue the growth of the channel.
And it's about showing that value. I mean, James, I don't know if you've ever found that hard with painting and demonstrating to a potential client the value in your service.
I have this conversation daily, weekly, monthly with prospective clients, with people at conventions. I get asked this question all the time from individuals in general. I think it's a combination of two things. I love our industry, I love the community and everybody in it, but for my specific thing and for us and what we do as a business, a lot of people don't see it as a real job, or they don't see it as what it is. And I always try and break it right back down to, I see it as one thing. And some people disagree with me about it, but I see commission painting as a trade. That's what I see. It's no different. I've said this so many times on so many different places. Like, if you're a plumber, carpenter, electrician, you go to college, university, you study, you practice, you get that accreditation, that bit of paper that says, I can do this job. But with commission painting, your experience in getting better as a painter over years and years and years is that training. It's no different. Yes, you don't get a nice bit of paper with a gold little laurel or something on it or whatever, but it's no different. So But within our industry, it's not seen as that. It's just seen as painting toy soldiers or painting miniatures. And the thing I talk about all the time is time. Like, it's the one thing you don't get any more of. You know, not trying to go too deep or too into it, but the reality is that person painting your miniatures could have a family. They could spend that 10 hours with their son or daughter. They could spend it walking the dog. They could spend it going on holiday. They could spend it doing any other thing. But they're spending it on your models, and it's no different when it's like a plumber, a carpenter, electrician. They come around, they fix your shower, or they install a bathroom for you. It is no different, except for going to college and a bit of paper. I get asked all the time, oh, why is it that much? Or why is it this? Or, oh God, how many hours does it take to paint it to that quality or standard? That's how long it takes. Like, with a trade or with a physical, laborious task, it takes that time. And I think one thing that, not just within our industry in general, things like Amazon, things like takeaway food, next day delivery, that kind of stuff, it mitigates that patience that people need, and to understand that like when you make a shed or you make a bathroom, or that the time that it takes is the time that it takes. It's no different with commission miniature painting. But because our industry comes inherently from a hobby background, that makes people think, oh well, it's just a hobby. Mm-hmm. It's not a job. Mm-hmm. Like, but where we try and sort of, I don't want to say it in the wrong way because it's not how we go about it, but we just try and kind of educate our clients as to what we do as a company, how we do it, why we do it, and what it takes to get it to that quality, if that makes sense. And if they choose to go ahead with it, then great. If not, then of course that there's other people out there, that's fine. But there's a difference between what we offer and other markets. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, what a lot of people don't probably appreciate is the support team that actually makes the whole thing work. Yeah. It's not just the fact that you've got somebody who's painting a model for a period of time to a certain standard that would save somebody time. Yeah. But it's also that, you know, if you buy a Rolex, for example, nobody needs a Rolex. Mm-hmm. People want a Rolex because they think, okay, this is a really nice gift that I've been given by a partner. Maybe I'm looking to get that promotion, and when I hit promotion, I'm going to buy myself this Rolex that I really want. Or maybe they're buying the Rolex because they perceive themselves to be, okay, well, if I go into a business meeting with a Rolex, maybe it will help me. You know, there's that perception there of, oh, that person must be good at their job. They've got a Rolex, right? So we buy these different things for different reasons. And it's true about exactly, you know, with what you offer. Mm-hmm. There is like, when you handed me the Army today, I was absolutely blown away by it. From that will be a moment I'm always going to remember. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to forget that.
No, that's super humbling. So thank you.
I'm not going to get that moment if I paint the Army myself. So I need, you know, I don't need the Army necessarily, but I want it. Mm-hmm. And that is something which is so hard to actually get across to people, is that difference between what they need and what they want can often be really, really different. And I think that is something that, like we said, they don't understand everything that goes into that consult call, the quote.
They don't see
the
any
communication.
Of that. They don't see the people working in the office doing the quotes. They don't see the people working out, obviously, how long it's going to take to get that to the quality they want. They don't see all the people packing the miniatures to make sure they get to there safely. They don't see the people in the media documenting them. They don't see any of that infrastructure which goes in place to give them the quality of service and that product that they are buying, whether they need or want it. It's unfortunately, things just, if they're not instantly apparent or visible, they're kind of put to one side sometimes. Yeah. And I think that's just inherent with how, again, not trying to go too deep, but with society, patience being mitigated all the time. Yeah. It's just something that is changing in society as time passes.
Indeed, like over the course of obviously your channel growth, and you must have had, I mean, I've certainly had it, I'm sure Liam's had it as well, but some of the criticism that you've had over the years in how you deal with it. So from whether it's comments in YouTube.
I get a lot of criticism.
I know you do, mate. I mean, I'm not surprised, but mainly from me, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I want to know from you, Dave, like, how have you done this for so long and still passionate about making content? How do you deal with the criticism?
The criticism is an interesting thing. It's like a amplified mirror, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, Dave, you don't know the rules, you shouldn't play. If I listen to it, I shouldn't play. I really shouldn't, right? Because I don't remember stuff and I just forget stuff all the time, and there's constant errors. But that's not why I play. I don't play to be the best chaos player. I play to have fun, and I'm selling. My product isn't learn how to play chaos better. My product is, do you have a good time watching the video? If you have a good time watching the video, then I've sold my product well, right? And so people expect that. In fact, I put a lot of disclaimers at the beginning. I'm like, there's going to be a lot of banter in this video. It's not just stop watching right now, because that's what it's going to be. It's mostly that. And then we're going to play a game somewhere in there. And so I think people after a while, they just know. And the guests that come in, they have that similar mindset where it's like, I'm here to have fun and just like throw down and goof around, because I am not a good player when it comes to the player playing the game, right? I have a ton of fun with it. Like what you do, it's nuts. You like all the stuff that it's incredible that you created an academy and that you're teaching people, coaching people. That blows my mind, right? Like what? That didn't exist how many years ago?
Yeah.
How many new businesses have spawned from this industry, right? Like back when we started years ago, what, you're doing videos about playing a game? Like that's what the conversation was. Now it's like this stuff. Yeah. Now it's like Instagram. Now it's TikTok doing lore videos. Now it's like, it's so many places doing so many things.
But it's all a good thing. Like the growth of the industry is phenomenal. Like to go from a hobby to a commercial industry is a brilliant thing to go through. Because it actually strengthens it massively with loads of people trying these things that we're talking about, doing something, going, oh, I do this as a hobby, but I've got an avenue to actually do it as something that I love and earn money for doing it. It's, you know, I say this all the time, we're going through one of the greatest moments in our industry, the growth of it. Obviously, it's been brilliant over the years that we've had so far, but with the Rise of Games workshop and how far they're pushing the envelope, it's just, you know, there are so many things that haven't even been untapped. Obviously, the coaching side of things is something that in the last, 3 years, would you say? Yeah. So there'll be things that haven't even surfaced yet.
That's right.
In our industry that are quite normal in other industries.
Yeah.
That no one's doing.
That'll just come up like,
yeah.
whoa.
Considering you've both probably experienced criticism, if you had to, I'll go to you first, Dave, and then we'll come to you, James, after.
Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to some, because I get a lot of it and I struggle.
Yeah.
I spent 10 years in the military, right? And there's a way that you deal with criticism in the military that you can't do with an audience or a customer. So I really struggle with it, and sometimes I let it really affect me personally as well. And I think there's a lot of people out there probably have the same experience, if we're honest. So if you could give one piece of advice when looking at or dealing with criticism, what would it be?
I would say be honest with yourself. If what they're saying is true, then just be like, you're right.
Okay.
If it's not true, then it doesn't matter. So I don't usually engage in the comments, but the critical ones especially, but sometimes I do. And it's like, oh, you got that real wrong. You're like, you're not wrong. Or it's like, you could have done that better. You're right, just don't tell anybody. Like I just respond that way because it's like, they're not wrong sometimes. If they're saying like a troll saying something, then it's obviously wrong. And then it's just hilarious to me because they're just trying to cause trouble, right? But if the majority of the things that they're saying are actually true, then it's like, okay.
Cool.
They're not wrong. So
James,
I would say honesty.
James, you must have had some criticism at Siege.
Yeah, 100%. Like, again, for the company that we are and what we offer, price is always something that comes up as criticism. People don't understand it or people don't want to pay that. That's fine. We've had that all the time. But the reality is there are different levels of quality in every industry and you pay the relevant price for that. We just simply, again, like you said, I don't want to mirror Dave's thing, but just be honest, say this is what we do, this is the experience we've got, this is what the quality we offer, and it's your choice as a customer whether you want to pay that or not. To not just jump on Dave's back and go on the honesty side of thing, the thing that I would say is, like, obviously your criticism, I take it from the perspective of a painter. Like when you get critique or feedback on a miniature, you have factual feedback and you have opinionated feedback. Obviously, if it is factual and it is something, then you have to either look at it, take acknowledgement of it, and choose whether you want to acknowledge it or not. But if it's just opinionated, then it's just words.
Okay.
Like, you know, I know comments on YouTube, like there's that thing about obviously everyone can say something from behind a screen or on a keyboard or whatever. Just ignore it. Like, you know, unless it's absolutely honestly truth and it really affects you because you know it's true. And if it's just someone saying something, the thing is they're still spending time, which they're not going to get back. And part of them actually does care because they wouldn't comment if they didn't care. So this, and you're still getting for the algorithm, you're still getting the hits and the topics people are commenting. So don't see it as a specific thing like that, but just choose to react to stuff, I suppose, in a bit more of a factual or opinionated basis. That's what I would say.
Perfect.
Yeah. So on that, is there anything that you would have liked to have done differently over your time, Dave? If you could look back at a moment you think, could I have done anything differently? And if not, what would you have told your younger self potentially?
I would have told my younger self, don't eat so much popcorn. You're going to get... there was a time when I was better. Okay, so the answer to that is no. There's nothing I'd change because then I wouldn't be here. This is always an interesting question.
Yeah.
What advice would I give myself? That would like mess up the timeline, and then I wouldn't be here. I guess it would just be just keep on going. Keep on going because you're going to get there. Right? That's what the advice would be. I'm not going to tell you specifics because it's going to mess it up past Dave, but just keep on going because eventually you'll get there because I'm still alive and we're still here and things are still happening.
Dave's in a time loop right now.
I'm in a time loop.
He's questioning the matter of existence, reality, and time quadrant over there.
It's like Daveception going on.
Yeah. I didn't mean to send you down there, Dave. We'll pull you out.
It was a fun trip.
Yeah. Well, and what about you, James?
Yeah, definitely I would change things. I would have not been in bands and toured for so long. I would have come home, gone in my loft sooner, found my models and started sooner. Plan a bit more in the early days. Obviously, it's you can always look back with hindsight on decisions or things and say, I wish I should have done that better. But you're quite right. The things and decisions you've made lead you to the point that you're at. But if I could say anything to myself when I was younger, it would be stop playing in bands and start something for yourself sooner.
Yeah.
And to touch upon the point that you're talking about now, Liam, with obviously jumping to full time, just don't have fear. You could be 60 or 70 and start a business or start something. It's never too late to try, because you can always fall back on the thing that is there for everybody, which is employment with somebody else. That's what I would say.
Liam, anything you would tell your younger self?
It's tough, right? Because I very much agree with both what Dave and James have said already. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the experiences that I've had so far.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, if I could tell myself one thing, it's that throughout my life so far, all the experiences I've had to lead to me to this point, just try and enjoy it. Yeah. Rather than focusing on the stress or the worry. I would argue that to some extent maybe those stresses and worries would sort of inform decisions or change some of the decisions you make potentially. So maybe it would have been a slightly different path. But there have been a lot of times where I've come away from a scenario or a situation, I've been super stressed about it, and I think I haven't enjoyed that as much as perhaps I could have done, and that might have been a one-in-a-lifetime sort of opportunity, and so just being in that moment and enjoying that moment and not worrying about perhaps the future or the past or whether I've upset this person or whether this person's, just enjoying that moment is probably the biggest piece of advice I'd throw at myself as a younger me.
I think one thing I would definitely do, and I was in an industry of fitness modeling and fashion and the rest of it, and I had to secretly go to the Games Workshop. I had to take a bag.
We've all done it, don't worry.
So I had to take a bag, like a rucksack, and I thought, is anyone going to see me I know going into this shop? I would tell myself to be a proud gamer much earlier on. When I actually started telling people that I enjoy this game, you get a little bit of, especially with some of the people that I used to associate with at the time, give you a bit of crap about it. And actually, I wish I did that much sooner. I wish I really embraced the hobby and be proud of what it is. And to be sat around a room with, some incredibly successful people in what they do in this hobby, I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think we should all be proud that we play this game because it really is so meaningful for us. Whether we paint, you play Crusade or lore-based or whatever it might be competitively or whatever you do, Liam. we all enjoy different ways of playing this incredible hobby.
I love you, Steve.
I love you too.
I think, to be honest with you, though, I mean, as an interesting piece of advice, I think society around this kind of environment has changed.
It has.
The emergence of things like the Marvel films, the TV series like The Big Bang Theory, all that kind of stuff that's become mainstream has helped, I think, our industry as well become mainstream. True. Yeah. But I went through that too. I was in the army, right? I used to live on barracks, and I would sit there with my barrack room door open, painting, and you'd always get the comment,
You painting toy soldiers.
Yeah, what you do, you geek. And then eventually I would not engage. I just carry on doing what I'm doing. And they go, I used to have some of them orcs. Yeah, everyone's been there.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting to say because a lot of people in the military or in like the police or fire brigade, a lot of those industries, you do have a lot of people that do the hobby. Like it's quite it's amazing how many people in those services do actually do it as I suppose escapism to what it is that they actually do. I've got a lot of friends that are, for example, in the police and things like that, and obviously what they go through and what they see is obviously what they see and what they do, and maybe that does help them massively, you know.
For me, there's two forms of escapism. One was delving into the lore and the narrative and losing yourself in a universe that doesn't exist. Yeah. So there's that escapism, which I think is key for a lot of people. But the other thing for me was that cathartic process, going through the building the models, painting the models, etc., to the tabletop. That long, drawn out, and you're just focusing on what you're doing at that point in time. You're not thinking about where you are, what you've seen, what you've experienced. You're just doing the hobby.
I agree totally. I think the beautiful thing about our industry and our hobby, just as a little off tangent, is that for the time that you invest in it, it's not like a film that you watch or a series that you watch or a computer game that you play. You have something physical and tangible that is always there, which I think is worth value-wise so much more. I think that's one of the key things that for about doing this is that you've got that physical thing. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that is a absolutely beautiful point to end on as well. I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for coming on the show today.
Even me?
Even you, yeah. And also to the team behind the camera right now. Massive thank you to them for making all this happen. So a huge thank you to them. But Dave, it truly has been a pleasure to meet you finally after all the chats that we've had.
Thank you for your coaching.
It's all right, anytime.
Yes. It's true.
It has been a real pleasure working with you. And same for you, James. Thank you so much.
Thanks as much as ever. Thank you.
Really is a privilege. And Liam, I love you, and I know you're going to be incredibly.
I was waiting for a comment then as well.
No. You're going to get a real one. I'm truly grateful for you, and I know you're going to be successful.
Thank you, man.
Keep
I
doing
appreciate it.
Anyway, so thank you so much for everybody at home who hopefully have enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week on the Competitive 40K podcast. Take care.